The air was lovesick. Each day he did nothing but stare blankly at the cluster of peonies outside his window. The gardeners said the herbaceous peonies had been brought from the residence of a minor 6th-rank official on the western side of Imperial Street. That official had only one younger sister. The princess had already decided on the marriage for her son. Yet the air remained steeped in melancholy, growing thinner and more haggard with every passing day. The princess watched me with pained, uncomprehending eyes. Her son was about to marry the girl who held his heart. Why did he still look so joyless? I turned my head and quietly regarded the cluster of herbs blooming in splendid color. A breeze stirred the leaves and revealed a length of old cord buried beneath the flowers. I brushed the soil aside and pulled it free. Half a familiar jade chess piece lay in my palm. In that instant I understood it was because of that person. The day my elder brother Li returned to Luoyang, I received 2 letters at once. One was from him, asking how far my marriage arrangements had progressed. He had brought back a superior luminous pearl from Bohai, one that could be set into a wedding crown. I curved my lips in a faint smile, then picked up the second letter lying on the desk. It was from my fiancé Feiqi. My smile faded. He was nothing like my elder brother. He rarely wrote to me. Even after our engagement, he seldom stayed in Luoyang, wandering the world instead. As the only son of Princess Jiafu and the Marquis of Jibei, he held no official post and did not compete with the other silk-robed young lords of Luoyang in displays of extravagance. He had once said that the joys of this life were simply the mountains and rivers in the forests, the cool wind beneath the bamboo, and 3 years spent with scholars in discussion over a single game of chess. That was enough. Yet these past 2 years, he had worn a constant expression of suppressed resentment. Even when playing chess, he could not smooth the sorrow between his brows. The princess worried endlessly over him. Everyone knew Feiqi was the treasure of her heart. How many times had heaven tried to snatch this child away with illness? She had begged the Buddha, prayed to the immortals, and wept until her tears ran dry before she finally pulled him back from the brink. She often repeated these things to me, hoping he would find happiness again. She said that to make her son smile once more, she had cast aside all concerns of matching status and family background. She had insisted on marrying him to the girl who held his heart. A marriage between the 2 great houses would have been too unequal, unworthy of the union. Even if the girl's family was only of middling 6th-rank status, even if the so-called girl who held his heart existed only in the princess's own imagination, after the engagement was set, she had happily told Feiqi, "Mother has already decided on the marriage for you. The girl's surname is Li. Are you pleased, my son?" At the mention of the surname, Li Feiqi's expression had shifted. After a long silence, he had tacitly accepted. I too had been quietly delighted within the Lai residence. Marrying Feiqi was not only a leap in status. It was because I considered him a kindred spirit. My late mother used to say that a chessboard could reveal a person's true heart. Once I had disguised myself as a man and accompanied my elder brother to the Dongshan elegant gathering. There I played a game against Feiqi. He had pressed me step by step, yet at the moment of certain victory, he had generously left me an opening to escape. I only pretended to retreat before turning to bite at his tail, tangling with his white pieces in a fierce exchange. He had stared at me, then thrown his head back and laughed. From beginning to end, we never spoke a single word, yet the joy and exhilaration between us had all been spoken by the board. The game lasted until dusk, with no clear winner. Back then, the rules of the elegant gathering required a folding screen to be placed between the 2 players, leaving only a gap for placing pieces so that faces remained hidden. At first, I did not know who he was. Later, my elder brother told me that the person I had played against that day was the heir himself. My brother had said, helplessly, that we were 2 fools who had met their match. Feiqi had kept asking who I was. So when the princess came to discuss the marriage, I had thought he already knew it was me. He had gone to such lengths, spending several taels of gold just to obtain from my elder brother a pot of precious flowers I had personally planted, placing it outside his window so he could gaze at it every day. Hearing that story, I had rarely felt a trace of shyness. There was someone who understood my chess and cherished my flowers. At that moment, whether he was a prince or a common peddler no longer mattered. Even if he had only been a street vendor, I would have been willing to stay by his side for life. I agreed to the marriage. Everyone was happy, but now lying before me was only half a jade chess piece still stained with mud. I looked again at the letter in my hand, and slowly cut it open with a paper knife. Only 2 lines of writing lay inside. I glanced at them once, then set the letter down. Late spring flowers were fragrant. Petals from the herbs in the porcelain vase drifted down, covering the elegant script. After much thought, I still feel this marriage is unsuitable. When your elder brother returns, Chi will come in person to apologize. Please do not grieve. Chi is filled with unease, kowtowing. Fei Chi returned before my elder brother. He brought the letter of withdrawal and betrothal gifts, his robes neat and proper. He sat upright before the desk, separated from me by a folding screen. A maid presented the gifts gold, jade and pearls, along with an ancient copy of a flower manual. To someone who loved flowers, it was more precious than jewels. Thank you, Heir Fei, I said. Accepting these is the same as agreeing to end the engagement. However, this humble girl also has something to return. I took the half-jade chess piece from my sleeve and placed it on the wooden tray. The maid carried it out and set it before Fei. On the other side of the screen, the slender figure of the young man stiffened slightly. His fingers curled within his sleeves and did not move. After a moment of silence, he spoke. Do not misunderstand, young lady. I only regret that your elder brother no longer plays chess. I grieve that there will no longer be a kindred spirit to play against. I had no wish to entangle myself with him. I am only concerned for your elder brother, which is why I speak plainly. My brother serves in the officialdom. His reputation concerns the entire clan. Years ago, because the commandery prince forced him to play chess through the night, he smashed the board and swore he would never touch it again in this lifetime. If the heir truly regards him as a friend, you should understand his ambitions. It is not easy for a son of a humble family to rise in the world. He once offended the commandery prince and was forced to leave home for 1,000 miles. As his younger sister, I truly do not wish to see him harmed again. To nobles, this was perhaps only a minor romantic entanglement, but to my elder brother it concerned his honor. Through the screen, the two figures faced each other in silent opposition. After a long while, Fei Chi finally spoke, his voice cold. In your eyes, am I truly such a despicable scoundrel who relies on power to bully others? I lowered my gaze and did not answer once I believed you were a kindred spirit. Of course I dared to trust you. But now I no longer dare, I thought in my heart. Perhaps he had never suffered such humiliation before. He rose angrily to his feet, not even touching the chess piece. He took 2 steps, then turned back and stood before the screen, mocking. Before I was still worried that breaking the engagement was too hasty. After hearing your words, I wish I could immediately go to the stream and wash my ears clean. Your prejudice against me runs so deep. It seems breaking the engagement is a great blessing after all. Rest assured, young lady. From this day forward, even if His Majesty forces you and your brother into my household, I will defy the edict. I will have 8 palanquin bearers respectfully invite the deity out of the temple and carry you right back out. From now on, Fei Chi will no longer presume to climb so high as the gates of the Li family in Jiangxia. With that, he stormed out. His wide sleeves stirred a gust of wind that set the bamboo curtain in the corridor swaying. I turned my head away, put the half-chess piece away, and stared at the wall without speaking. When my elder brother finally returned, he lifted the bamboo curtain and stepped inside, head lowered. He looked at me in confusion. I just ran into the air. Who provoked him into such a rage? He was charging about like a mad bull. I barely had time to greet him before he flicked his sleeve and threw dust in my face. Li has returned, I said at once, rising from my seat. I stepped quickly around the screen and saw the person I had not met in so long. The closer I drew to home, the more timid my heart became. My steps suddenly faltered. The man who had just returned from the government office removed his official hat and looked over. His bearing was solemn and refined, like wind through the forest. Then he smiled and opened his arms. What is it? Do you not recognize me anymore? At the sound of that familiar, intimate voice, my nose stung. I rushed forward and threw my arms around his neck. Warmth still clung to him from outside. The sunlight beyond was beautiful, and it softened something in my heart. Elder brother, I whispered. Li smiled and stroked the back of my head. You only know how to act spoiled. But from now on you will have to change the way you address me at home, understand? I nodded against his chest, my fingertips secretly measuring the circumference of his waist. Elder brother has grown so thin, I said, looking up at him carefully. And darker too. He smiled faintly unconcerned. When an official is constantly traveling, there is no time to nurture flesh. If you were not in Luoyang, I would truly have stayed away forever. He knew I disliked the ostentatious atmosphere of the capital. Moreover, as a woman managing affairs in the imperial city, the dangers were even greater. But official postings left him no choice. I sighed on his behalf. He asked again, puzzled about the earlier matter. What did the heir come to see you about? You two are already engaged. Should you not avoid meeting before the wedding? I froze, then stepped out of his embrace and forced a natural expression. It was nothing. He frowned and took 2 steps closer, tilting his head to study me. Were you not fond of each other? Did he wrong you? I wanted to speak, but instinctively I did not want my elder brother to hear such sordid matters. Normally, he already walked on thin ice. Now that I had angered Fichi into leaving, he seemed proud enough that he would probably not entangle himself with our family again, thinking this breaking the engagement was truly for the best. At the very least, it avoided the risk of my elder brother's identity being exposed. I lowered my head and gave a soft laugh. There is no wronging. It is only that, after careful thought, this marriage truly does not suit us. Ending it early is better for both sides. Lee still frowned tightly. I tugged at his sleeve. After all, the gap between our families is too vast. Did you not hesitate for a long time before agreeing to this engagement in the first place? That was before, he said. At that time, refusing would not have damaged your reputation. But now that you are engaged and then break it off, will people not mock you? I released his hand and walked to the window, speaking calmly. If others wish to laugh, let them laugh. I live only for myself in this life. If my husband is not someone who understands me, I would rather remain unmarried forever. Behind me came Lee's laughter. Little girl, your tone is quite bold. I turned and embraced him. I am no longer a child. He pinched the tip of my nose lightly with 2 fingers. Still saying you are not. He paused, then sighed softly. Well, perhaps it is fortunate. A great house blazing like fire and oil is not a place you should enter. He lowered his gaze, his lashes heavy with unspoken worries. I looked at him. When we were young, I could always guess what troubled my elder brother. Back then, the only thing that gave him headaches was how to place the next piece on the chessboard. After our parents passed early, leaving the 2 of us to rely on each other, the things he had to consider became far too many. His life. My life. Which path should we take? Those vast calculations were harder than any game of chess. Playing chess valued no regrets after placing a piece. Once played, it could not be taken back. Yet even after losing, there was still a chance to begin again. A woman's life was harder than chess. Before my sister lay 2 paths, marry or continue playing. She had chosen the latter. She bound her hair, wrapped it in a kerchief, and disguised herself as a man in the thriving chess circles of the time. Game after game she fought, victory after victory, earning a reputation. The descendants of this dynasty who wished to become officials relied on either filial reputation famous throughout the commanderies, or recognition as a renowned scholar by the upper literary circles through mastery of the 4 arts. My elder sister's appearance in disguise was outstanding, her chess skill dazzling. She was quickly appreciated, and first took a minor clerical post in a prefectural office. This was partly due to her background. No matter how great one's talent, it was difficult for someone from a humble family to rise to mid- or up-rank positions, so she had to work diligently, burying herself in official documents in the Luoyang Yamen for 2 years. Even so, in the end, she offended the commandery prince because she refused to engage in improper relations. She was transferred out of the capital and sent far away to Bohai. Although she was reassigned back to Luoyang a year later, from her expression it seemed she had not wished to return. Could it be that the commandery prince was still pressuring her? I felt a surge of determination to investigate. While my elder brother was busy with official duties, I disguised myself as a man, darkened my face with makeup, and carefully thickened my brows before slipping out the back gate. I had an acquaintance in the commandery prince's residence. Because chess had been extremely fashionable in Luoyang these past few years, literati treating it as elegant amusement and commoners using it for gambling, had secretly entered the gambling houses. During the year my brother was in Bohai, I earned money this way to help lighten his burden, and in doing so I became acquainted with a clerk working in the commandery prince's residence. He had stood up for me many times. I relied on winning at chess and split the earnings 30-70 with him. I went to Yonggi Lane, where the nobility resided, to find that clerk. I had intended to pry information from him, but the moment he saw me, he poured out his troubles like a flood. "Oh, young Lai, you have come at the perfect time. This brother of yours is so vexed. He wants to smash his head against a wall. Come, let us go earn some money and buy wine for a proper celebration." I avoided his arm, trying to drape over my shoulder, and asked softly, "What happened? Did your commandery prince harass some innocent family again? Was he discovered by someone important in the palace and punished, then took it out on his subordinates like a dog biting a cat?" The clerk shook his head. The rumors about the commandery prince's improper relations from years ago were mostly spread by outsiders. The matter between him and your elder brother Lai ultimately stemmed from competing with the heir of Princess Jafu's residence. He could not bear the princess constantly comparing him to the heir, so in his anger he tried to steal the renowned scholar beside the heir. Who would have thought young master of your family would be so unyielding? He would rather smash the chessboard than associate with a dissolute cestrel, like the commandery prince. That is what provoked him. I nodded, thinking to myself that my elder brother was safe for now. But because of this, the conflict between the commandery prince and the heir had only grown fiercer. The heir accused him of bullying his friend. He replied, "Not just a friend. Even if it were your wife, I would still seize her," the clerk sighed. After that he was often ordered to investigate whether the heir had someone in his heart. At first they targeted the young lady of the Li family, but later discovered the heir did not care much. Now that he had even broken the engagement, the commandery prince was pressuring them to find the rumored chess soulmate. The clerk clapped his hands helplessly. What kind of ghostly business is this? Since it no longer concerned my elder brother, I let the words go in one ear and out the other. I only smiled and comforted him. It is not easy for anyone. No one has it easy. Come, let us go earn money. Only then did the clerk regain some cheer the moment I stepped into the gambling house. I felt like a fish returning to water. I felt a twinge of shame. Our mother had taught both her daughters chess. One used it to become a renowned scholar and upright official. The other used it to gamble for money. If my elder brother ever found out, he would surely be furious enough to beat me. But that brief reflection passed in one ear and out the other. The moment I sat before a chessboard, I forgot everything else. Although the gambling house was vulgar, the chess room had several elegant clusters of bamboo casting shade. I chose an empty spot and knelt, lazily watching the dappled light filter through the leaves, waiting for my first opponent. In a place like this, opponents were usually people who cared nothing for scholarly elegance. I had encountered well-diggers, butchers, and even courtesans carrying wine cups. Each carried their own scent: the fishy smell of well water, the greasy smell of rendered fat, the powdery smell of a woman's rouge. A person and their scent seemed bound together. I did not need to turn my head to know who approached. A figure passed through the bamboo leaves. The sound of jade pendants tinkled. His aura was as clear and cold as a mountain stream. He paused, glanced around, then casually chose a seat and straightened his sleeves. In the interplay of light and shadow, he gave me a slight nod. "Young friend, care for a game?" I turned in surprise. Feiqi, that face he had glimpsed it once in haste on an ox cart when descending Dongshan years ago. And that voice, I had heard it only days ago during the broken engagement. It was truly him. Young friend? I came back to myself. He did not recognize me. He yielded the first move to me and took the black pieces himself. Very well. Now is not the time to worry about why he came to such a place. I steadied my mind, picked up a piece, and placed it in a corner. Tap tap. I did not know how much time passed. The entire chess room seemed to contain only the alternating sounds of Feiqi and me placing pieces. The spectators around us grew steadily more numerous. Their breathing grew lighter. Feiqi's expression was radiant, completely different from the dejected look he had worn when he first arrived. In the end, victory was determined by the number of pieces captured. My chess style had always been sharp and I was competitive by nature. When I used to play against the refined scholars alongside my elder brother, I had often held back to maintain propriety. Now facing Feiqi with unresolved feelings, still in my heart, I showed no restraint. I encircled and captured without mercy. In the end, I won. The spectators erupted in cheers. I felt a trace of satisfaction and looked up, extending my hand before him. "Pay up!" Feiqi's expression was strange. He did not look like someone who had lost. On the contrary, he seemed extremely excited. He suddenly seized my hand, his gaze burning. "It is you!" His ice-cold hand made me tremble. I tried to pull away, but he held on as if afraid I would flee, his strength astonishing. "Are you ill?" I quickly thought, and deliberately roughened my voice. "What are you doing, trying to welch on the debt? Everyone, look, this person loses and then plays dirty." I deliberately drew the crowd's attention. The people of the marketplace loved excitement. Someone on the left said, "He looks like a rich young master, yet he welches on debts." Someone on the right added, "He looks so handsome, but his character is rotten." Feiqi was rarely at a loss for words. Facing the crowd's contemptuous gazes, he stammered, "No, I taking advantage of the chaos." I yanked my hand free, bent low, and pushed my way out. I was scared to death. This Feiqi is truly a chess maniac. I panted against the alley wall outside the gambling house. Face must have been rubbed raw by the crowd, so I casually wiped it against the wall and squatted to check my reflection in a puddle, touching up my disguise. Just as I finished and prepared to stand, a tall shadow suddenly appeared in the water, cold enough to raise gooseflesh. I trembled and looked up. Fei Qi had also been jostled by the crowd and looked somewhat disheveled. He smoothed his messy hair and placed a hand on my shoulder. You wanted money, so why run? He took out his money pouch. He seemed surprised by the thinness of my shoulder and muttered, no wonder you have to gamble for money. Your family must be so poor you cannot even afford food. Raising a daughter like this here, take it all. I watched him warily, growing impatient. He simply stuffed the pouch into my chest. I stood up awkwardly. He sighed with emotion. The day we parted on Dongshan, I searched everywhere for your whereabouts. Later he happened to play a game against young master of your family. Seeing a familiar chess style, he mistook him for you. Alas, it was not easy to ask him for a real game. I either bought flowers from your residence, or tried to marry your younger sister to become family. Who would have thought he would swear never to play chess again for the rest of his life? It made me so angry I could not eat for 2 days. The handsome young master looked exactly like a stubborn child, overjoyed at finally finding his most understanding chess companion. Now I have finally found you. The game on Dongshan was never finished. You must play another match with me. After speaking, he corrected himself. Not just one match. A lifetime. A lifetime of playing chess with you. In my heart, emotions churned. I had once longed to hear from his lips a promise of a lifetime. I never expected it to come true in this way. The heavy money pouch in my hand pressed down on my heart. I suddenly realized that he and I had never truly been kindred spirits. He was a princely son born into a world of colored glaze, forever looking down from above upon the mortal dust. The petty fame and meager wealth that my elder brother and I had to carefully gather. He only needed to reach out his hand and it was already in his sleeve. Yet he did not need to discard it like worn shoes. He could be so naive that his eyes held only chess. He could marry whoever he wished and discard whoever he wished. His life was like a game of chess where one could always take back a move. It made people envious and even somewhat hateful. My expression cooled. I took from his pouch only the amount I had won, returned the rest and spoke bluntly. I will not play chess with you again. Fei Qi clutched the pouch and frowned as he watched me walk past his shoulder. For a while I stopped going to the gambling houses. I only stayed in the imperial garden among the 100 flowers. My elder brother was also away from home. For a time he had been transferred to the Secretariat. The Son of Heaven had ordered the compilation of the 9 provinces' literary collection, making the previously leisurely Secretariat suddenly busy. Elder brother is only a minor official. At night he still has to stand duty in the imperial city. He told me not to wait up with a lamp. The moment night fell, my elder brother would rush home to eat a meal with me, then hurriedly carry a bundle of bamboo slips out again. I would hold a lamp in one hand and an umbrella in the other, chasing after him. You forgot your umbrella again. Last time you were caught in a downpour and fell ill. Have you still not learned? After our parents passed, very few people could still nag my elder brother like this. He had never made a mistake in his work, but he never took care of himself. I stood on tiptoe and draped the cloak from my arm over his shoulders, continuing to chatter. The night wind is cold in the government office. There is only a desk and a mat. There is not even a cushion. My words suddenly stopped. My elder brother had lowered his head heavily against my shoulder. Young? I was puzzled. I gently patted his back. What is it? Are you very tired? Should I ask your superior for a day off tonight? My elder brother shook his head, his voice heavy with sorrow. Suddenly he said, I am going to resign. We will return to Jiangxia. I will not be an official anymore. I can teach to support you. What are you saying? I thought he was simply too exhausted and speaking nonsense. I tried to encourage him. I heard recently that His Majesty intends to promote sons of humble families. You were transferred to the Secretariat. That is a place for pure officials, close to the imperial city. With your talent, sooner or later you will catch the Son of Heaven's eye. My elder brother did not speak. I bent to look at him carefully, unease growing in my heart. Has someone been bullying you? He still shook his head. His slender fingers clutched the front of my robe. In a low voice he said, I am fine. It is you, Yang. His Majesty is about to select consorts for the princes. Our family is also on the list. The night wind blew the silk ribbon loose from her hair bun. The lamp flickered dimly. Twilight spread in all directions. A moth flew toward it. My elder brother said, if you become a prince's consort, then I will not need to be selected. I will not have to spend my life with a completely unfamiliar man, enduring humiliation and compromising at every turn. That was his heart understanding me. But I also understood him. Being an official was his ambition from childhood. My sister had loved walking among the countryside and mountains. She had told me that if she were a man, she would govern a commandery or prefecture following nature, not disturbing the crops, so the people would have food and clothing, living in peace and contentment. It would be exactly like her chess style, advancing and retreating with proper measure. Thus the common people under her rule would not be like our parents. Years ago, father following Junwanzhen to die in the desert, our mother exhausting herself for livelihood, and perishing children forced to grow up too soon. I had told my elder brother, "You were born to be an official. Do not stop for my sake. If I am truly chosen as a prince's consort, then I will gain a little power and the strength to support you. That is not necessarily a bad thing." My elder brother hugged me tightly, his voice pained. "But that is not what you want. The imperial family is noble and lofty. Who among them does not look down from above? How could any of them lower themselves to become your kindred spirit? Yang, I do not want you to suffer. I only want you to be happy." I sighed softly and lowered my head to embrace him. "It will be fine. In this life, having you as a kindred spirit is already enough joy." Seeing that she still could not relax her frown, I comforted her. Besides, if those commandery princes are all so arrogant, how could they possibly take notice of me? My elder brother raised his head and looked at my face. His worry did not diminish, it only increased, he muttered. "Unless they are all blind." I was helpless. The day to enter the palace for selection drew near. In truth, my heart was filled with worry. If I were truly chosen, I would not even be able to go out to gamble at chess anymore. Just imagining being locked inside vermilion walls and glazed tiles, competing with a crowd of concubines for one man's favor made my vision go dark. I paced back and forth in the inner chamber, my fingertips lightly stroking the men's clothing hanging on the rack. I would go one last time, one final time. I would alter my appearance and go to the gambling house. The clerk was already waiting there and called out loudly, "Young, you have not come in a long time. The people who want to play against you are already lining up." He was unusually excited. I felt puzzled and followed him into the chess room. To my surprise, it was a private, elegant chamber. By the window sat two people who turned to look at me simultaneously. I stopped and turned to the clerk. He gave me a bitter smile. "So you are the kindred spirit the heir has been searching for all this time." Liu Guo, Prince of Runan, toyed with a jade thumb ring and smiled as he asked. Fichi stood beside him, the coldness between his brows openly displayed. "He is merely a commoner from the marketplace. Why must the commandery prince go to such lengths?" Guo raised an eyebrow. "If he is unimportant, then why are you here? This prince makes friends as he pleases. What does it have to do with you? If I were not here, would you let the commandery prince bully people and force them to distant lands again?" Feiqi's voice grew heavier, his meaning deep. Liu Guo's expression darkened. He turned to look at me. "Will you listen to him or to me?" I lowered my voice. "This humble one listens to neither. This humble one also does not care who is higher or lower. This humble one came here to gamble for money, not to make friends. If the nobles wish to bet against this humble one will play chess." Liu Guo paused. His deep gaze swept over me. He gave a light, meaningful snort. "There is someone even Airfi cannot subdue? Very well, this prince will bet against you. There is plenty of money." This commandery prince said he was a rotten chess player. A disgrace to the chessboard, a person with neither skill nor character. Normally when he played, others probably yielded to him. Even the rule of no regrets after placing a piece probably did not apply to him. One game progressed to the end. He relied on cheating, playing dirty, and taking moves back, losing everything step by step. He stared blankly, then burst out laughing. "You are truly formidable." He paused. "How about this? From now on, become this prince's teacher. What do you say?" I gathered the chess pieces and shook my head. This humble one has already said, "I only gamble for money. I do not make private friendships." "Hump," Liu Guo spoke. "You keep calling yourself this humble one. Yet your rules are not small. You are quite interesting." Feiqi seemed to have reached his limit. He stood and pulled me away, saying to Liu Guo, "Have you played enough? You are also someone about to marry. Can you not act with a little more dignity? Stop acting like a child opposing me every day." Before he finished speaking, I was angrily dragged outside by him. It was still raining. He had not even brought an umbrella and pulled me along into the downpour. I struggled to break free. Unexpectedly, Liu Guo behind us also chased after us in anger. "You call making friends through chess dignified, yet you act like this, and still call yourself a romantic scholar? You even have the face to lecture me. Let me tell you this person today, this prince has decided to seize." I was caught in the childish dispute between the two of them, annoyed to the point of wanting to jump into the river suddenly. Feiqi pointed at my face in shock. "Your face? Why is black water flowing down it?" I hurriedly raised my sleeve to cover my face. But the spring rain pouring down like a waterfall was determined to bring this absurd encounter to a clear conclusion. The layer of disguise on my face was completely washed away by the rainwater. Both of them saw. "You are a woman." I lowered my hands. "Yes, this humble one's family is poor. I had no choice but to do this. Now may I leave? I do not wish to be caught in the rain and fall ill." The two of them stood silently. After that sudden moment of silence, they both stepped aside, clearing a path for me. I walked away quickly, feeling as though thorns were pricking my back. The first time selecting consorts for the princes, daughters of humble families were also allowed to participate. Therefore, the selection was even stricter. In addition to the consorts in the palace, noble ladies from the imperial clan were also invited to observe. Princess Jafu was among them. She deliberately waited outside the palace gate and quietly called me to her side before the other young ladies entered in the carriage. She sighed. "Youngni, I once truly wished for you to become my daughter-in-law. It is only that Chini was stubborn and broke the engagement on his own. Sigh, I wanted to make it up to you, which is why I specially waited here." She first asked me, "Tell me honestly, do you wish to become a prince's consort?" I lowered my head and remained silent for a long while before shaking my head. "Your Highness, Youngni does not wish to. Before with Feiqi at least there was mutual affection. But these commandery princes, some are arrogant, some are romantic, riding horses and hunting birds. Each is detestable in his own way. Setting aside those superficial reasons, just considering His Majesty's intention this time, although he claims he wishes to promote the humble families, the first one to rise is always the most hated. His Majesty wishes to suppress the great clans. How could the great clans not counterattack? My elder brother has no family backing. Alone in the officialdom, if he becomes a target for hidden arrows at that time, would His Majesty offend the great clans for the sake of one minor official? My elder brother and I have already carefully discussed it. If we can avoid it this time, he will find an opportunity to request a transfer elsewhere, and I will return to our old home in Jiangsha. A dangerous place like Luoyang is best left far behind." The princess nodded. "Very well. When the time comes, just stand at the back. I will find an opportunity to cross your name off the list. As long as you do not catch the eyes of the consorts, you should be able to have your way." "I am deeply grateful. Thank you, Your Highness." The princess sighed. "It is also Chini's fault. If not for him, you would have married into our residence long ago. You would not have encountered this trouble for no reason." I lowered my gaze and did not speak. The palace banquet was held in the flower pool. The daughters of noble families were dazzlingly beautiful, outshining even the spring flowers. I dressed simply and, following the princess's instructions, did my best to stand hidden at the back. While I was lost in thought watching flowers fall into the lake, I suddenly heard the chief eunuch call out loudly, "Li of Jiangxia, step forward." In my heart, I sighed softly. I lowered my eyes and gathered my brows, then rose and took small steps toward the front of the dais. It turned out some noble lady wished to see me. She studied me for a long while, then smiled and said to the princess sitting beside her, "Such a beauty! How could your crown prince bear to break the engagement?" The princess replied, "Before the marriage, we consulted divination. The two were not fated." The noble lady said, "It seems her fate was destined to fall into my son's hands. I think she is very good. I have the intention to choose her. What do you think?" My brows trembled slightly. The princess looked at me and smiled as she spoke to the noble lady. "She is naturally good. It is only a pity the divination said she is not suited for the imperial family." Liu Gua and Qini had similar eyes since childhood. The person Qini could not marry, I feared Liu Gua would also. The noble lady suddenly remembered something from that year and laughed with regret before releasing my hand. If that is the case, from behind the flower screen a figure suddenly strode forward and declared in a loud voice, "This son is pleased with her. I beg mother to grant it." The entire banquet fell silent at once. The noble lady scolded, "Have you no manners? The empress and all the consorts are here. Who allowed you to barge into the women's banquet? Leave at once. As long as the consorts and your mother agree to let her become this son's wife, this son will immediately withdraw." Liu Gua's figure behind the screen bowed steadily, his posture sincere.
Does the empress smile?
Dignity. It was rare to see a prince lower himself in such a way. "Noble lady, that divination, whether one believes it or not, it exists. Why not fulfill the sincere heart of Prince Runan?" The noble lady had no choice but to nod once again. She took my cold hand. "Very well." Behind the screen, Liu Gua bowed once more, then strode away. A marriage was thus decided without anyone asking whether I was willing. As I withdrew, I looked toward the princess. She wanted to speak, but ultimately only sighed. Dusk fell. I left the palace together with her. Carriages from various households lined up one after another, exiting the inner imperial city. I was about to put on the veiled hat a palace maid was helping me with, when a carriage suddenly charged against the flow from the city gate. The person inside was in a hurry. Before the driver had fully stopped, he jumped down, staggered to regain his balance, and rushed to the princess's carriage. The princess lifted the curtain. After hearing him speak a few urgent words, she stared blankly, then frowned with regret and shook her head at him. The bamboo-like figure of the young man suddenly froze. He stared rigidly in my direction. The wind lifted a corner of my veil. The distance was neither close nor far. Fei Qi and I looked at each other. It was the first meeting between Liang and Fei Qi that had nothing to do with chess, yet we passed each other in this manner, declaring farewell. At the end of that year, red clouds covered thin snow. I became the first princess consort in this dynasty to come from a humble background. According to custom, after marriage, a commandery prince must return to his fief. Liu Gua negotiated with the court and decided to take me back to Runan only after the new year. This was his way of cherishing his son. He had specially requested permission for us to reunite with his elder brother and spend the new year together before departing. Inside the hall, incense smoke curled. I performed the rites and softly expressed my gratitude. The noble lady took my hand and had me sit beside her. She spoke gently. This child of mine has been stubborn since childhood. Compared to his brothers, he is inferior, and he cannot reach someone like the crown prince, a figure of jade and pearl. Speaking of this, her expression grew somewhat sorrowful. His Majesty has either blamed him or neglected him. I did not dare to speak up. The noble lady smiled again. Now that he has married a wife, he is much better. He no longer roams about drinking and associating with those wild, arrogant scholars. He only stays in the residence playing chess and planting flowers with you. Even His Majesty was surprised by how clear and refreshed he looks. He is no longer the same as before. The credit belongs to you, my daughter-in-law. I lowered my eyes. It is merely the idle amusement of women in the inner quarters. That His Majesty and the noble consort do not blame this daughter-in-law for spoiling the Prince of Runan. I am already deeply grateful. I dare not claim any credit. The noble consort patted the back of my hand lightly. No need for such modesty. You are very good. She then ordered a tray of clothing to be brought over and reminded me that Runan was cold. Fox fur and crane cloak, these both you and have he likes you, and is willing to listen to you. From now on you must watch over him carefully. Absolutely do not let him fall back into the habit of drinking and taking scattered powders. I accepted the gifts with both hands. This daughter-in-law understands. Liu Gua nodded with satisfaction inside the carriage, leaving the palace, his mood excellent. He pulled me into his arms and said that His Majesties had also bestowed many gifts upon him and had already ordered the Runan prince's residence to be renovated. I lowered my gaze to the floral patterns on my sleeve. Liu Gua suddenly fell silent. After a moment he lowered his head, used 2 fingers to lift my chin, and lightly bit my cheek. I looked up at him in surprise. He covered the corner of his mouth and lowered his voice. We are outside. Liu Gua paid it no mind. The only thing he cared about was one matter. He seemed lost in thought and did not notice me. I pressed my lips together. We would have to leave soon. I only remembered my elder brother. Liu Gua leaned back lazily, his long phoenix eyes slightly upturned. Truly? Only your elder brother? I glanced at him. If not my elder brother, then who else? His voice dropped, low and dangerous. In Luoyang, it is not only your elder brother. I was at a loss for words. He pressed closer, his entire body radiating the fierce aura of a wild beast. His large hand, accustomed to holding bow and arrow, slipped inside my sash and pulled me roughly against his chest. His voice was hoarse beside my ear. What about Fei Qi? Do you still think of him? He has been drunk every day because of you. I heard that the other day he was so intoxicated. He tried to scoop up the reflection of flowers in the water and nearly drowned. Do you not feel any heartache? His restless hand moved upward, as if he wanted to reach inside my chest and see my heart clearly. He only had one wrong thought and personally handed you over to someone else. Now he regrets it too late. And you, do you regret it? I was pinned against the carriage wall by him and struggled to avoid his kiss. I do not regret it. I do not regret it. Do not do this outside, I am afraid. Liu Gua panted heavily and finally stopped. He pulled me onto his lap and gently stroked my flushed cheek. That is more like it. His chin rested on my collarbone, his tone lazy. Good girl, Yang is so good, you belong to me. After a pause, he added, if you dare betray me, I will settle the score with your elder brother. He raised you. He must have taught you what it means to follow one husband for life, no? Snow fluttered in through the carriage curtain and landed on my shoulder. I trembled slightly. Are you cold? Under the cord, he suddenly asked. I looked at him blankly. What? Li helplessly took my hand and rubbed it between his palms. You are so foolish. You are already shaking from the cold, yet you still insist on keeping vigil all night. What for? I shook my head and looked up at the sky, forcing a smile. In previous years there was always a full moon on New Year's Eve. This year there will definitely be one too. Lee and I both raised our heads to look at the sky, his hand still holding mine. We waited for a very, very long time. Within the thick clouds, only a few cold, dim stars could be seen. At last, a faint greenish light of dawn appeared on the horizon. Lee's eyes were filled with tenderness. He placed an arm around my shoulders. Let us go. In the blink of an eye, after the final New Year's exorcism rites, Liu Gua took me away from Luoyang. The carriage passed through the Qingyang gate. I lay by the window the entire time, watching my elder brother on the city wall, until his slender figure shrank into a tiny black dot. Only then did Liu Gua pull me back to his side. Enough. You cannot see him anymore. Yet you are still looking. I have never seen any siblings as inseparable as the two of you. I only wish I could stay as far away as possible from those elder brothers of mine. He let out a long breath, took my hand and lay down on my lap. Once we reach Runan, we can do whatever we want. Is that not much better than Luoyang? I pushed his shameless face away. The noble consort already warned us. You must be more careful. Liu Gua paid no attention and instead raised his head to bite my fingertip teasingly. Very well, if you manage me, I will naturally listen to you. I put on a stern face. He sighed, admitted defeat, and nodded. I know. After the eldest brother passed, the position of crown prince was left vacant. His Majesty has been hesitating among the elder princes. Mother is not worried that I will get drunk outside again and speak nonsense in front of those people, is she? I still have some sense of propriety. Do not worry then, did my exhaustion ease slightly. Now both my elder sister and I were tied to the same boat as Liu Gua. I was truly afraid he would cause trouble and drag us down with him. But he had not maintained his proper behavior, for long before returning to his old self he pinched my cheek. You are exactly like your elder brother, such a little stickler for rules. Smile for your husband. I turned my face away. He reached out to coax me. Smile or not, I had no choice but to dodge and blurted out, can you not be a little more dignified? In an instant, the carriage fell completely silent. The smile on Liu Gua's face gradually disappeared. He sat up. I immediately realized I had said the wrong thing. I did not mean. He did not listen to my explanation. He directly lifted the carriage curtain, stopped the carriage, and got down by himself, mounting his horse to ride ahead. The atmosphere along the entire journey was cold and tense. It was not until we arrived in Runan that the prince's residence had been completely renovated. Liu Gua led me to the rear courtyard. I saw a lake, terraces, and steps. A circle of freshly turned earth surrounded the area. The officials said these were clusters of medicinal herbs transplanted from Luoyang precious and rare varieties, the work of heaven itself. I turned to look at Liu Gua walking behind me. His expression was indifferent as he entered the inner chamber. Without a word, he changed out of his outer robes, as if he could not bear to stay in the same room with me, and immediately wanted to leave the residence to drink and meet guests. I sat before the mirror. Worry gradually appeared on my face. Becoming husband and wife with someone like Liu Gua was something I had never imagined. He was unrestrained and willful, never knowing the meaning of restraint. This caused both the good and bad parts of his personality to be magnified to an extreme degree. Since I had become his princess consort, perhaps because everything was still new, or because he was pleased with his victory over Fei Qi, he had treated me with great favor with his status supporting me. My elder sister's official position had also risen with the tide. The Son of Heaven, seeing her talent, promoted her to the Secretariat to handle agricultural and taxation matters in Qiankao. However, Liu Gua also possessed the arrogance and unpredictability common to those in high positions. I could not understand him, just like what he did next. The princess consort, the Prince of Runan, has called for dancing girls and is holding a drinking party. He is also forcing the guests to consume hanshi san. The maid stood awkwardly, with her hands clasped under the corridor. I set down my jade comb, was silent for a moment, then stood up and walked toward the front hall. Inside the banquet were scholars from Runan, whom Liu Gua had half invited, half coerced into attending. Several refined gentlemen had pale faces and refused to take the powder. I stood behind the artificial mountain beside the screen, and quietly gave instructions to the steward. The steward nodded and hurried inside. The princess consort has arrived. The guests left their seats one after another. The steward led them elsewhere. After all the male guests had departed, I stepped forward. I saw Liu Gua drunk and lying in the arms of a dancing girl, his long hair disheveled across the table full of tilted wine cups. I raised my hand slightly. The dancing girl lowered her head and stood up, preparing to withdraw. Li Gua opened his eyes, his face flushed from alcohol, his gaze unfriendly. Who dares to leave? The dancing girls froze in fear. I said, leave. Li Gua stared at me and spoke in a low, threatening voice. Whoever leaves, I will behead. I took a deep breath, patted the shoulder of the trembling dancing girl beside me, and said firmly, do not be afraid, all of you withdraw. The girls hesitated for a moment, then lowered their heads and left quickly. Li Gua lay among the dishes and sneered. Your authority as mistress of the house is truly great. Without me, what are you? I answered calmly. What am I? Perhaps the Prince of Runan should tell me, even I myself do not understand. I walked up to him and looked down from above. You married me. If you only see me as a trophy of war, then I have nothing more to say. But if you still see me as your wife, then I have the responsibility to advise you. Li Gua's expression was unreadable as he looked at me. I spoke frankly. You are not sincere toward me. To be honest, I also feel that you are very much a stranger. We are husband and wife, yet we do not understand each other's hearts at all. This marriage is almost like a joke, but things have already reached this point. Since you refuse to divorce me and insist on remaining husband and wife, then I hope we can change for each other. I will try to respect you, to love you, to share honor and disgrace with you. I also ask that you. My voice caught. I forced down my emotions and continued with difficulty. I ask that you stop treating me like a plaything. Please give me at least a little of the respect due to a wife. There are times when you become angry, and I truly do not understand. You can tell me. Li Gua reached out and pulled me into his arms. No need to say more. Our youthful black hair tangled together. My chest was damp. The man's heart pounded violently as he held me tightly. Enough, I understand. He slowly stroked my trembling back and repeated, I understand. I did not know why. But from that day onward, Li Gua truly began to change. Perhaps it was more accurate to say he returned to his original self. That night he leaned on the pillow and said to me, actually, I used to be somewhat like you. You relied on your elder brother, and I once admired my eldest brother greatly. I imitated everything he did. Li Gua and the eldest prince were born of the same mother. The eldest prince had been born intelligent. Back then he and Fei Qi were known as the two jade trees among the reeds. The two of them were jade, the other princes were merely reeds and weeds. The eldest prince was not as aloof as Fei Qi. He treated his younger brothers well, respected the worthy and cherished scholars. He was the eldest son, most beloved by his majesty. When he became crown prince, no one inside or outside the court refused to submit to him. Unfortunately, at only 19 years of age, while accompanying his majesty on a campaign, he blocked the front lines alone to cover his majesty's retreat. In the chaos of battle, he fell from his horse and was trampled to death by iron hooves. It was said even his face was completely ruined. His majesty did not dare open his eldest son's helmet. He held the body and wept loudly. When the noble consort in the palace heard that her son had died tragically, she was so shocked she fainted, and several times wanted to follow him in death. Li Gua said, I clung to mother's legs and begged her not to hang herself, but she seemed to have gone mad and kept kicking me. After eldest brother left, she could not even continue living. I said, Mother, you still have me. But mother replied, what are you? Li Gua pulled at the corner of his mouth and gave me a bitter smile. In the end, she still chose to live. She said it was for me. At first, both she and his majesty placed all their hopes on me, believing I could become a second eldest brother, but after I disappointed them several times, they stopped caring about me. Only when I did something that broke the rules, only when I competed with Fei Qi, did they pay attention to me and discipline me. Mother saw Fei Qi as eldest brother's shadow and doted on him greatly, but she never saw any good in me. She always wanted me to learn from Fei Qi and respect him, as I respected eldest brother. Who does he think he is? Hearing this, I finally understood the knot between him and Fei Qi. In the end, it was simply a matter of unwillingness to submit. He was a reed, why should others be jade? But what sin had I committed to become a sacrifice in his struggle? I could not bring myself to pity him. On the surface I was moved, but inside I remained unmoved. I had once tried to understand him, but it was useless. He tried to understand me and asked about my past, but a humble family's life of poverty was a blank space to him, nothing worth mentioning. As for my elder sister disguising herself as a man to serve as an official, that matter was far too shocking and could not be spoken of. He opened his heart to me, thinking he could also open the door to mine. He did not expect that door was also fake. Inside was not sincerity, but only distrust and vigilance toward those in high positions. Therefore, when he said, Yang, tell me about your past, I could only offer the half-true, half-false lies I had repeated countless times. After our parents passed, I was raised by my elder sister. My elder sister's chess skill was outstanding. She was selected by the upright official in Jiangxia. In the 2 years we spent in Runan, many changes occurred. First, in court affairs, His Majesty established the second prince as crown prince. The officials from humble families who had been promoted in recent years gradually gained a foothold in court. The most prominent among them was Li. She was appointed left minister of the people, managing household registration and taxation. These past 2 years, she traveled throughout Xi province, starting from Luoyang, remeasuring farmland and attempting to reclaim the mountains, forests, and fields that had been excessively occupied by great clans, redistributing them to the poor for their livelihood. This matter was extremely difficult. Several times she was targeted by the great clans and nearly thrown into prison. Fortunately, Liu Guo was willing to help her. Although he did not understand much, he often said to me that sometimes even His Majesty had to yield to those great aristocratic families. Elder sister doing these troublesome and thankless things is truly throwing herself onto the blade. These past 2 years, Liu Guo had grown increasingly steady while training in the military camp. Every time he returned from inspecting the camps, he would remove his armor and say to me, "You should also advise her to be careful more often. Right now I can still pull her up. If she truly touches the sore spot of the great clans, when the time comes that she is ground to dust, I will not even know where to fish her out." My fingers rested on Liu Guo's sash, my expression full of worry. How could I not want to advise her? But once my elder sister decided on something, she would not regret it even if she were ground to dust. His Majesty had chosen her to be the vanguard to take the hit. From the day she was promoted, she understood she no longer had any path of retreat. Just thinking of the possibility that she might be thrown into prison made me afraid. Prison meant a body search. Once searched, her identity as a woman could no longer be hidden. At that time, the entire court would be shaken. I did not dare imagine how frenzied the attacks against her would become. Seeing my face turn pale, Du Guo stopped speaking. He quickly smiled and pulled me into his arms to comfort me. I spoke wrongly. Elder sister is now someone His Majesty values highly before the Son of Heaven. How could anything happen to her besides? Even if something truly happens, I will definitely protect her for you. Do not be afraid. I leaned against his solid, strong chest. The unease in my heart finally eased slightly. At that moment, my skirt was tugged. I lowered my head and saw a pretty little girl learning to walk unsteadily. Her words still unclear. Liu Guo was overjoyed. He burst into loud laughter, picked up his daughter and said to me excitedly, "Look, the little one can walk now. She even knows how to call you." He hugged both of us, shaking us until I felt dizzy. I said helplessly, "Zuer already knew how to practice walking and talking yesterday. It is only because you have been too busy lately that you did not notice." "What? You should have told me too." Liu Guo was only focused on being happy. His eyes brightened as he lifted Zhou'er up. "Good child, call father." "Ah, father." Zhou'er tilted her head and looked at the tall man before her. She suddenly grabbed the ribbon of his hat, but could not pronounce father clearly. She only pouted and made puffing sounds. Seeing this scene, I finally laughed. Liu Guo turned to look at me and tried even harder to amuse his daughter, deliberately trying to make me happy. I noticed this, my fingertips lightly touched the corner of my upturned lips. I was momentarily dazed. Just as spring arrived in Runan, the sunlight had already become gentle. Soft sunlight fell, and medicinal herbs bloomed brilliantly throughout the garden. I stood beside a cluster of flowers, reading my elder sister's letter from home, while Zuer pulled me along by the hand. "Elder sister says everything is well. Do not worry." She wrote that she was overjoyed to hear Zuer had grown. She remembered when I had once practiced walking and talking in the palm of her hand. Those carefree days were still vivid before her eyes. In the blink of an eye, more than 9 years had already passed. "You are safe, and elder sister also feels fortunate." As I read, my eyes grew moist. At that moment, someone came from the front courtyard and said respectfully, "Princess consort, you have a guest." The maid who had come from Luoyang. I turned my back to wipe my eyes, handed Zhu'er to the wet nurse, straightened my sash, and walked through the corridor asking, "Who is it?" The maid shook her head. The guest did not give a name. He only said he is an old acquaintance from Luoyang and has urgent news for the princess consort. When I arrived at the front hall, the bamboo curtain was half raised. I could vaguely see the guest's back. My steps faltered. 2 years without meeting, yet he still had that same otherworldly bearing. The sound of jade pendants rang softly. The man turned and bowed to me from behind half the curtain. "Princess consort, I will not enter." I took half a step back under the corridor and returned the courtesy. Here, the curtain obscured his brows and eyes. I could only see his slightly thin chin with a faint shadow of stubble. The corner of his mouth moved slightly. Before the Prince of Rewritten returns, I Feiqi have come uninvited. I have been rude. I hope the princess consort will not blame me. I lowered my eyes. I would not dare if the heir has something to say. Please speak directly. Feiqi was silent for a moment, then said, the princess consort is far away in Rewritten, and is protected by the Prince of Rewritten and your elder sister. I thought you probably do not often hear news from court, but this matter is of great importance. She cannot help but speak the truth. My heart lifted. I waited for him to continue. He seemed somewhat hesitant. His fingertips curled slightly. Then he made up his mind and said, your elder brother, he is in trouble. I immediately stepped forward and lifted the curtain. In Feiqi's eyes I could see traces of blood as he looked straight at me. It turned out that in the letters Li had been soothing me because of the land reform. He had offended too many powerful nobles in court. Over the past 2 years he had been demoted again and again. Last winter he had fallen ill but still forced himself to attend court, trying to preserve the hard-won results. His Majesty had also been feigning illness frequently. Behind the crown prince stood the great clans. The power of the humble officials represented by Li was too weak. Looking at the situation ahead, there was very little chance for a turnaround. Li was unwilling to continue being suppressed. He decided to take a desperate risk. He secretly contacted the Prince of Huai in the south, intending to coordinate with the frontier princes from both inside and outside. He planned to take advantage of His Majesty's serious illness to shake the crown prince's position. This matter was leaked by one of the Prince of Huai's strategists. The court began a strict investigation of all officials who had ever had contact with the frontier princes. Although his accomplices had not yet confessed anything about Li, the blade hanging above his head, how could he not be terrified? Feiqi said, ever since His Majesty showed intention to promote officials from humble families, your elder brother has stood on the opposite side of my father multiple times, making him unhappy. This time, even if your elder brother is not truly involved, I fear my father will not let him go. Everyone knew that Feiqi's relationship with his birth father, the Marquis of Jibei, was cold. In order to escape the imperial family's control, the Marquis of Jibei had not feared Princess Jiafu's power and secretly had an illegitimate child in Jiangzuo. Princess Jiafu hated this to the bone. Feiqi had risked coming all the way to Rewritten to bring me this news first. He could not persuade his father second. He also could not persuade Li. Your elder brother's heart is as hard as stone. Even if the executioner's blade were at his throat, he would not escape. Feiqi shook his head wearily. Old friends from back then have fallen one after another. Some were executed in the marketplace, others died in prison. I truly cannot bear it. I paced back and forth, my mind in chaos. Hearing this, I looked at him. Then do you have a way to save him? Feiqi gathered himself. Yes. As long as you return to Luoyang with me and persuade your elder brother to withdraw from court, I will have a way to protect him. I did not have time to think further. I immediately nodded. Very well, let us go. I hurried to the writing desk, dipped the brush in ink, and left a short note for Lu Gua. Without even preparing a carriage, I mounted a horse directly. My heart flew like an arrow straight toward Luoyang. That desperate ride was to attend a funeral. The night I arrived in Luoyang, flames shot into the sky on the western side of Yuali, and the entire garden full of peonies were burned until nothing remained. She had already planned everything. If she were driven to a dead end, in order to protect her identity and protect me, she would use one fire to burn everything clean so that no one could investigate anything. Her secrets, her ambitions, her achievements, all went with her. But she forgot that there was still me, whom she had left behind. How could she? I walked dazedly toward the gate of the residence. She should have been standing there, waiting for me. Just like when we were children, she would helplessly brush the dust off me and say, "You only wrote a few strokes of your new characters before throwing down your brush and running outside to play until this hour before coming back. You child, Li Yang." Feiqi grabbed my arm. I turned my head blankly. It is not right. Feiqi swallowed with difficulty, his voice hoarse-long. I pulled at the corner of my mouth and asked him, "He is not inside, is he?" He often does this, staying overnight in the imperial city on duty and not coming home. So he is not inside, right? Feiqi opened his mouth but could not speak. He only gripped my hand tightly, refusing to let me rush into the sea of fire. I pushed him. I only want to see if he is there. I only want to look for a moment. Why do you keep stopping me? Why did you have to force him? In the end, I completely collapsed. I do not remember how I struggled, or how I hit and kicked. I was held tightly in Feiqi's arms. It was not until dusk the next day that the fire was finally extinguished. I knelt blankly among the flower beds. Now there was only scorched earth in my palm. I clutched a handful of dirt. My tears had already dried up behind me. Feiqi led people from Princess Jifu's residence to search through the ruins. The beams had collapsed too heavily. Forget a person, even a single intact object could not be pieced back together. He walked heavily to my side and was silent for a long time. I said coldly, cutting him off. Is your father satisfied now? Feiqi was stunned. Li Yang, I am not your enemy. When your elder brother died, my heart also ached. I cut him off. But in the end, you are still his son. I stood up and nodded distantly. Thank you for bringing me to Luoyang. But it seems that in this lifetime we were destined to stand on opposite sides of the chessboard. We can no longer be friends. Feiqi grabbed my wrist unresignedly. All these years between you and me, we only saw the chessboard and not the person's heart. Because of prejudice. I did not believe a woman could possess such chess skill, and missed you. You also did not believe in my character, and did not believe I would give you an answer. He nodded bitterly. Very well then, I will show you. Without waiting for my reply, he released my hand. On the shoulder of the white-robed young master, now covered in dust, there was already the weight of mortal affairs. He was no longer as carefree as before. I stood in place and turned back one last time to look at the burned black flower beds, clenching the dirt in my hand. Liu Gua had almost immediately seen the note I left and rushed to Luoyang. A commandery prince was not allowed to leave his fief without an edict, so he was also punished. But he stayed by my side the entire time. Together we remained in Luoyang to collect my elder brother's belongings, then accompanied me back to Jiangxia to bury his memorial tablet. By then it was already summer. The green forests rolled like waves. I stood quietly before the grave. Liu Gua was very worried about my state of mind. Along the entire journey he had said many comforting words. Now he could only repeat helplessly, Yang, you still have me. You still have Jor. She misses you very much. I did not answer. I only looked at the tombstone and muttered, Tell me, in the end, what was it that forced elder brother to death? Liu Gua was silent. Was it the distance between the great clans and the humble families? Was it men's prejudice against women? Or was it his majesty? Liu Gua was startled. He frowned and covered my mouth. Be careful what you say. Words spoken by the ruler's mouth can bring disaster. Am I wrong? My eyes were filled with resentment, tears welling up. If not for the one sitting at the highest position being inconsistent in his advances, and retreats on one hand promoting elder brother, on the other hand, not daring to offend the great clans, only knowing how to push him forward to clean up the rivers and mountains for him, and in the end not having enough ability to support him continuing forward, even forcing him to become a sacrificed piece to appease the great clan's dissatisfaction. Liu Gua slowly lowered his hand. I unexpectedly gripped his hand tightly. If you became emperor, would it be different? What? Liu Gua's pupils contracted sharply. I looked at him firmly. If several of your elder brothers can become crown prince, why can you not? You are much better than them. You have both courage and strategy. These past few years in Runan, you have gradually won people's hearts. The scholars who once looked down on you are now coming to the prince's residence as retainers. This is enough to prove your ability. Cold sweat appeared on Liu Gua's forehead. I leaned against his chest and listened to his heartbeat quicken. That was desire for power. We husband and wife are one body that shares honor and disgrace. They do not believe in you, but I believe you can definitely stand shoulder to shoulder with your eldest brother, and trample all the disappointments and humiliations of the past beneath your feet. That highest position should have been your turn. When you ascend the throne, what His Majesty could not do, you will do. The great clans will no longer dare to threaten imperial power. At that time, you will leave eternal achievements in the history books and be praised by all the people. Liu Gua looked at me. His gaze gradually became calm. Do you truly believe in me? I lowered my eyes, hiding my calculations at the bottom of my heart, and cried while nestling into his embrace. If I do not believe in you, then who else can I believe in, husband? I only have you left now. Elder brother did not even die with his body intact. I only had that one elder brother. Liu Gua tightly embraced my shoulders. Beside my ears was the sound of the forest wind, rustling like waves. After a long time he closed his eyes trembling. He said, Very well. In the unseen realm, an invisible hand placed a chess piece toward the supreme imperial power. The opportunity arrived in the autumn of that year. The Western Lung surrendered, and then rebelled again. His Majesty was too old to personally campaign. Liu Gua volunteered to lead the army on campaign. His Majesty approved. Before departing, I packed his belongings for him. Liu Gua lowered his head and entered the room, casually mentioning, At noon today, a strange person came. He was as thin as a bamboo pole and said he had a brilliant plan to help me pacify the Western Lang. I smoothed the wrinkles on his clothing. You cannot judge a person by appearance. Why not listen to what he has to say? Hugo stood beside the lampstand. He also could not clearly say what was strange about the man. He only said he felt that recently everything had been going too smoothly. In Luoyang, His Majesty was seriously ill. The Crown Prince was handling state affairs on his behalf, but his conduct was not upright. He had been reprimanded by His Majesty several times, and there was also much resentment among the common people. As for me and Runan, everything had been smooth sailing. My reputation was good, and more strategists came to seek me out. He gave a self-mocking laugh, as if everyone knew I had already set my sights on greater ambitions. I looked at him, stepped forward, took his hand, and said seriously, "Husband is no longer the Agua of the past. His Majesty can see who has true ability and naturally knows who is the true master of this realm." Liu Gua smiled and reached out to lightly flick my nose. He stopped overthinking and said, "That person truly has ability. Since that is the case, I will bring him along on campaign. I hope he can help me achieve great merit and pacify the Northwest." I smiled. "You will definitely succeed. I and Jur will wait at home for good news from you." Liu Gua lowered his head and kissed me. The tips of our noses brushed lightly. A few years ago, Liu Gua was still living in drunken dreams. "I never expected to have a virtuous wife like you." He sighed softly and said sincerely, "If I had known it would be like this, back then I should have properly learned chess and met you first in the chess house. That way, perhaps your kindred spirit would have been me." Those words left me puzzled. He only smiled and waved his hand, not continuing much later. I learned that during that campaign, Faids also followed the army departing from the northern line. Fei Qi had written to him, recommending that impoverished strategist. In the letter was a sentence very similar to what I had once said. One cannot judge a person by appearance. He hoped the army would recruit this person to accomplish great things. In the winter of the second year, Liu Gua pacified the Northwest. On the road of triumphant return, the emperor fell seriously ill. According to protocol, I was permitted to return to Luoyang and enter the palace with other imperial relatives to attend to the emperor. During that time I met Princess Jifu. She looked much more haggard. I heard that these past 2 years she and the Marquis of Jibei had been in constant conflict. The concubines and illegitimate sons in Jiangdong gave her endless headaches, but because of the marriage alliance between the two families, divorce was difficult. Moreover, after Fei Qi resolutely entered officialdom and followed the army to fight in the desert, Princess Jiafu was anxious day and night. Fortunately, the main army had returned after pacifying the region, so she was somewhat relieved, but today, having just come out from the inner palace, her brows were still tightly locked, as if she had gained another new worry. I stepped forward. "Your Highness." Princess Jiafu paused, then smiled when she saw me. "Young Ni, let us walk together in the rear garden." After a moment of silence, she spoke first. "Regarding your elder brother's matter, my heart is very uneasy," I replied. "That year your Highness already sent officials to pay respects on your behalf. I understand. No matter what, this matter cannot be blamed on your Highness. As for the heir, because he was too grief-stricken, I once spoke harsh words. I hope your Highness will convey my apology to the heir on my behalf." Princess Jiafu shook her head. "He understands you. He also said that one day you will understand him too." Fei Qi has always been proud and aloof. Once he acknowledges someone as a friend, he will never change in this lifetime. Who would have thought that simply because of differing political stances, more than half of them would die at his father's hands? After your elder brother was also gone, he hated his own father even more. Princess Jiafu gave a bitter smile. People of one family, yet hearts divided into two paths. Husband and wife became strangers. Father and son grew distant. So many disasters arose from this. I held her ice-cold hand. "Among all the sorrows of this world, health is still the most important, your Highness. Preserving your body is more important than anything else." Princess Jiafu looked at me. "You are a good child." She paused, then lowered her voice. "These past few years the Prince of Runan has also matured. He already possesses some of the steadiness His Majesty desires." There was another meaning in her words. I listened attentively. Princess Jiafu looked around the inner garden of the imperial city, as if hesitating whether to continue. I understood and changed the subject to some casual topics. Then I left the palace and parted ways with the princess. That night I quietly slipped out the back gate and went to pay respects at her residence again. Princess Jiafu gave me accurate news. His Majesty intended to change the crown prince. That letter was immediately sent out of Luoyang. Not long after, Liu Gua received it. He did not rush back, instead, he deliberately slowed his journey. First, he secretly dispatched someone to return to the capital. Late at night, someone arrived at the prince's residence. His dark clothing was inconspicuous. From appearance alone, one would think he was a harmless old man. Only I knew how important this person was. He stepped into the room. From behind the folding screen came a hoarse voice. "Is the princess consort well?" I looked at him. "Is the strategist well?" he replied. "Thanks to the princess consort's care and concern, this subordinate is well in all matters." This matter is no small thing. This subordinate and the Prince of Runan were both worried about the princess consort being alone in the capital, so we came specially to give instructions. I swallowed my dry throat. "Thank you for remembering." In that moment of choking back sobs, he still heard it. The man behind the screen was silent for a while, then sighed softly and switched to his original voice, speaking gently. "When playing chess, the closer you are to victory, the steadier your hands, eyes, and heart must be. Mother once taught us that." I held back my sobs, wiped my tears, and took a deep breath. "I know, elder brother, do not worry." Inside my sleeve, I tightly gripped a black chess piece. Time returned to the spring of that year, when Li had thrown herself into the sea of fire. I was in so much pain that I tore apart the entire residence. I did not believe that elder sister would not leave even a single word for me. Li was an extremely strong person. Self-immolation to admit defeat, others might do it, but how could she? Yet the belongings in the residence had truly been deliberately cleared out. Just as I was in despair, an idea suddenly flashed through my mind. I looked toward the peony garden in the courtyard. There was a hidden mechanism in that garden. Ordinary people could not see it. The positions where the peonies were planted inside formed a chess formation with the flower railings serving as boundaries. That was a game my elder sister and I used to play when we were idle. We would bury a chess piece under a flower and guess where the other had hidden it. That day, when I dug in the northwest direction, where two clusters of peonies surrounded the area, I dug up a black chess piece. In Go, that position was called the tiger's mouth. A piece completely surrounded and without breath was dead, but the position of this black piece was slightly off, just enough to avoid that tiger's mouth trap. It symbolized escaping death. That was the signal my elder sister had left for me. She had escaped from Luoyang and headed northwest, but to protect me, she had never sent me any letters. I could only guess half of it. In my heart, I thought that Fei Qi and my elder sister were friends. The two of them had most likely already planned this chess game together long ago. In Luoyang, there were too many eyes and ears belonging to the Marquis of Jibei. In order for the Marquis to believe that my elder sister had truly died, Fei Qi had brought me to Luoyang to personally witness that fire and even made us turn against each other. That way, Fei Qi would not be suspected of still secretly associating with my elder sister. Later, when I heard that an extremely intelligent strategist had come to help Lu Gua pacify the Northwest, I became even more certain that person was my elder sister. Her borrowing the identity of the Prince of Huai's side was only a smokescreen. The person she had truly chosen was actually Liu Gua, joining forces with those in court who supported officials from humble families, coordinating from both inside and outside. Lu Gua was the blood-related younger brother of the eldest prince. In the early years, His Majesty had already intended to nurture him. It was only a pity that Lu Gua had been stubborn and missed the opportunity. And that time I had unintentionally gone with the flow and firmly supported Liu Gua's fight for the throne. In the unseen realm, it had coincidentally aligned with the intentions of my elder sister and Fei Qi. No wonder the last time Lu Gua suddenly mentioned the words, kindred spirit. He must have already vaguely guessed it. Then, on the chessboard, one could see through a person's heart. Lu Gua was not skilled at Go, but in this game of power where it was either you die or I live, he had received the best teaching. He could already become a qualified emperor. Next, it only depended on whether the storm in Luoyang would bring an omen of misfortune or good fortune. Li had quietly entered the city, mainly to coordinate from inside with Liu Gua's army. The Son of Heaven was on his deathbed. At any moment, something could happen. The Crown Prince was inside the palace. If His Majesty decided to change the Crown Prince would probably not allow that edict to appear before the world. When it truly came time to use military force, Liu Gua's claim to the throne would lack proper justification. Therefore, Li's plan was to break through from the inside first. There was no need for large-scale warfare, or to alarm the common people. That was the best strategy. Outside the residence, I had eyes belonging to the Crown Prince, so it was inconvenient to go out. That night Li came to instruct me that on the day of upheaval, I should hide in the secret room to avoid the Crown Prince in his desperation from harming me. That day I sat upright in the secret room before a chessboard. My body was not outside, but my heart understood the situation clearly. Every so often I would move a chess piece. First inside the palace, obtaining the imperial seal and the edict, passing through the Ming Hall, the central gate, the imperial path, deceiving the city gate guards and leaving the city. The incense on the desk burned down a section. Then came seizing weapons from the armory, cutting off one arm of the crown prince. Chess pieces were placed one after another. The incense burned down bit by bit. Calculating the time, it was almost the hour of you. The secret door suddenly rang with knocking, one long, one short, 3 times in succession. Sweat rolled down my forehead. I let out a breath and smiled faintly. I raised my hand and placed the final chess piece. Checkmate. The encirclement was complete. The game was decided. When the secret room door opened, it was already bright the next day. Liu Guo came running, his armor covered in bloodstains. He opened the door, saw me, and only then slowed his steps and let out a long breath. We won. He spread his arms and smiled at me. We won. I stood up from the chessboard and walked toward him. Outside the door, bright sunlight stretched beneath my feet. Liu Guo's figure was backlit. I glanced over and saw the wound on his neck. I lightly touched it and unconsciously frowned. You were still injured? Liu Guo looked at me intently, his gaze burning. His smile grew even more relaxed. I did not understand what there was to smile about regarding an injury. He looked as if a great stone had been lifted from his heart and said cheerfully, "You care about me." I was even more puzzled. "You are my husband. Very soon you will be the supreme ruler. Of course I care about you." Liu Guo shook his head. "What you care about is not the husband, not the son of heaven, and not any chess piece." While I was still dazed, he raised his eyebrows smugly. "You understand chess but do not understand romance." "I do not understand chess, but I understand your heart." That gaze seemed to say, "Li Yang, you love me. Even if you refuse to admit it, you have already fallen in love with someone completely different from what you once imagined." That made me extremely flustered. After Li Guo ascended the throne, he promoted officials from humble families. My elder sister became secretariat director. So busy she barely had time to eat or sleep, let alone resolve my confusion. As for me, although I was said to manage the inner palace, there was only me as empress. More than half the palace maids had been reassigned elsewhere, except for the days of sacrificial rites. When I was somewhat busy normally, I truly had nothing to do. Zhuar also had a teacher teaching her poetry, books, rites, and music. She was becoming more and more like a little adult. Only at night could she not help but want to cling to me, but she was always carried away by her father. The little girl said angrily, "Father is so domineering. He always hogs Mother," Guo replied. "Who told father to be the son of heaven?" The little girl tilted her head. "Does being the son of heaven mean you can have whatever you want?" "Then I want to be the son of heaven too." Liu Guo laughed loudly and lifted his daughter up. "Very well. When father is done being emperor, I will pass it to you." I stood to the side and could not help laughing. Liu Guo once again gave me that meaningful look that only we understood. How truly bewildering in the end. Why does he think I love him? Clearly, most of the time I have only been using him. He was completely different from the kind of person I once wanted to love. He did not understand Go. Even now he had not corrected his habit of taking moves back. He did not understand flowers. When hunting, he often dug up a few weeds and brought them back to plant in my garden, insisting they were peonies. Moreover, after becoming emperor, he became even more domineering and unreasonable. When sleeping, he always had to hold me. On hot days, it made me so annoyed I wanted to die. These troubles finally found an outlet one day. That person listened in silence for a long time beneath the palace hall. His graceful, solitary figure was framed by clusters of flowers. Today was the noble consort's birthday. He had entered the palace to offer congratulations. I kept him behind, thinking that since he and Liu Guo had grown up together, if he put himself in that position, he would definitely understand Liu Guo's thoughts. "Fei Qi, have you ever liked someone before?" I asked. "Is that person exactly as you imagined? Or is she different from you in every way, just like me and His Majesty?" After the Marquis of Jibei failed in the power struggle and passed away from depression in Jiangdong, Fei Qi inherited the title. He was no longer as arrogant as before. He looked gentle and refined, very approachable, but he did not marry. This caused people to give him a strange reputation. I thought perhaps he was still like before, a chess-obsessed fool who only had the chessboard in his eyes and heart, just like me, not understanding what it meant to love someone. But today he was silent for a long while before mocking me. "Liang, the chess-obsessed fool is you." After speaking, he did not resolve my confusion. His expression was not happy. He left in a rage. I looked at his departing back in confusion. Finally, in a dream I met my mother again and received the answer. In the dream, when I was little, Mother sat elegantly by the bright window, fanning herself with one hand while teaching me chess, but sitting opposite in the dream was me as an adult. Mother, someone says I have fallen in love with him, but I myself do not know what this feeling is. Mother burst out laughing. She laughed so much that I also felt a little embarrassed. Only after laughing did she speak. Since you were little, I told you that you were a block of stone. Even when you grew up, you would only become a foolish chess piece. I never expected one sentence to become prophecy. You truly are this foolish. I touched my face in shame. Mother's face was blurred by the light, but I could still feel her loving gaze. On the chessboard one can see through a person's heart. You only remember that one sentence. Why do you not remember what I said after? On the chessboard one can see through a person's heart, but human life cannot be treated as merely a game of chess. Young me, what makes people different from wood and stone is that we have feelings. I woke from the dream and stared blankly at the window shadow. After a while I turned to look at the man beside me. A cool breeze gently blew the hair in front of my eyes. It was afternoon. The man had finished handling state affairs. I did not know when he had lain down beside me. His eyes were closed. One hand rested empty on the bed in his hazy sleep. He sensed me looking at him and unconsciously turned his wrist, fanning me with the fan. In that moment I understood.